package is on or is set. So you can see that the deflate package is also enabled. You can see the headers is enabled and the expires is also enabled. So once we have that enabled, then we can scroll to the end of the configuration file. All right, so at the end, in the files you will download from the server, we have a file here called the Apache add-on. So we copy this file, the content of this file, and then we paste it end of the configuration file for the Apache on the server. So let me just quickly walk you through this. This is really not so important for you, basically, except if you want to know the inner workings of the Wi-Fi hotspot manager. But the default behavior is it goes to the var.html and c2 directory, which we created using the cake.php installation, and we've set all the allow override to all. So because cake.php uses the htaccess files to reroute and play around with routes, then we need to allow it to override using the Apache configuration file. So the subsequent kind of attributes here, like the set output filter, set to deflate, is the method we want to use to actually kind of compress the content and send it to the client's browser. This is just to improve the performance of the site. You can see here we set up different log formats. You can see the browsers we are matching. We're matching Mozilla, we're matching Internet Explorer. We are setting up some expiry on the static files, like the icon or ICO file, the PDF images. We've set some high expiration dates on the files, so that way we don't allow the files to be downloaded as often as possible. And then we've gone ahead and also disabled the the tags, e-tags on the files. So once we have that set up, go ahead and save it. Now we need to go back to the etc directory and modify the Php Dot Ini file. Alright, so the kind of settings we need to modify here is, the first one we need to change is the allow call time pass reference. So once we do that, you can see that this stage is set to off. So I duplicate the line and comment the first configuration. This is just a matter of preference anyway, and I change it to on. The next thing we need to change is the allow or the short open tag. Right, so we need to find the file that's actually set, and you can see the short open tag is set to off, so we need to enable that. We need to also ensure that output buffering is set to 4096. So you can see here output buffering is set to 4096, and then we need to also set a time zone. So we need to type the date time zone settings. So you can see here that we have, by default, it's already commented out, so we need to set that. So the format is usually you specify the continent and then you specify the location. So for me, I'm in Nigeria, so I will use Lagos. So once we have that set up, we can go ahead and restart service httpd restart. So if we've done everything correctly, Apache should go ahead and successfully restart. Alright, so you can see here it's successful. The next thing we need to do is also set up the MySQL database. So to do that, you navigate to the, let me clear the screen. You navigate to var.html, the c2 directory. So inside the c2 directory, we need to copy the Wi-Fi cake files. So to do that, we need to go into the root directory again. We need to go into tools, and in there we need to also extract the files in the Wi-Fi cake package. Right, so to do that, we just extract it using the Wi-Fi hotcakes. Alright, so you should come back to the screen once it has extracted all the files. Alright, so if we do an ls, you should see that we have the Wi-Fi cakes directory. So if we change into the Wi-Fi cakes directory, so you see that we have all the files required for Wi-Fi cakes. So the first thing you'll notice on the site is when we can easily delete the Svn files. The reason for that is, if I, for instance, let me just show you. a quick one here. So if I go to the Wi-Fi kick directory there and I do an ls-a, the a shows me the hidden file. You can see that we also have a hidden file here called the svn, and the svn basically usually very large because they just contain copies of the main project. This was copied because it was set up using svn. So to get rid of all that in the files, we need to kind of remove all the svn files. So to do that, I run the exec command. Alright, so let's see the syntax is correct. Alright, so it's not. Just pardon me here, I'm just trying to okay, so let's try that again. Alright, no, we need to use one of the exec. Alright, so sorry, my bad. I was supposed to just add a semicolon from the first one we did. So anyway, what this command allows you to do is we run the find command and we specify that we want to find just names, and we kind of find names with the .svn, and anytime we find anything with .svn, we run it through the exec command, which now removes the files and directories, and all this is just Linux format. So now when I go to Wi-Fi kick and run the ls-a command, you will see that the svn is missing. This has kind of made the files lighter. So we need to copy the Wi-Fi kick directory into our kick php installation, which is in c2, right? So and we need to change directory to the c2. You can see that we have that. So another thing that you will be wondering is, what about the ownership of the file? So you can see here this has the wrong ownership, so we can easily fix that by just running it through the Apache change ownership command, and that should fix it. So we can go into the Wi-Fi kicks directory in this case and go into the setup directory. So here you can see multiple folders. You can see the cron, you can see the one for the radius, which we'll set up later. You will see the one for the database, so this is one we are actually interested in. Alright, so here you can see multiple SQL files. So the order will usually be, you import the Wi-Fi.sql file, and then you kind of install all the patches. So beta 3 patch, this patch, and then this patch. So let's go ahead and see how that will be done. So we need to log into MySQL. Alright, and we need to create a database. We need to call it Wi-Fi. This is based on the documentation and the requirements by Wi-Fi Hotspot Manager. Once we've done that, we need to create a user by granting the user permission, so all privileges on. Then we specify the database we just created and all the tables to. Then we specify the user. So in this case, we're going to call the user Wi-Fi. Then we are going to specify the host the user will actually connect from. So in this case, because the system is on the same box, the MySQL is on the same box with the Wi-Fi hotspot manager, so we allow that to connect locally, so using the hotspot local host. And once we've done that, then we create a password using the identified by keyword, and we specify the password. So in this case, we granted all the privileges to Wi-Fi, and then we created a user called Wi-Fi, which will be connecting through using localhost, and it should be identified by the password Wi-Fi. Alright, so we need to also repeat this for, this is just in case there's a problem with the TCP stack in resolving localhost for some reason. Alright, so once we have that, we can go ahead and import the database. So to import that, remember we just created a user called Wi-Fi, so use Wi-Fi, and the password in this case is Wi-Fi, and the database name is called Wi-Fi. And then when you use the arrow in this format, it means import the file, redirect the input of the file, the output of the file to the input of this command. So once we type this and everything is successful, it should complete and come back to the prompt. So the next thing we need to do is we need to run the beta 3 to beta 4. So once you see this error, you can go ahead and ignore that. This is because it's meeting some entries in the database. So the next thing we need to also import is the beta 4. and the last one here is beta 5.26. Right, so we successfully kind of imported the database. So just to verify, you can log in. It doesn't matter, you can log in with the root account. You can use the Wi-Fi database, and you can show databases, and you can see you can show tables, and you can see all the tables already in the the database. Alright, so we quit and then we exit from there. So the next thing we need to do basically is to test the connection, because we've not changed anything, we've not deviated from the documentation, so everything should go ahead and connect fine. So for me, it's easy to reach my box using the 10.1 IP address. So this shows me the CentOS Apache test web page. So this means our Apache is on, the web server is on. So we need to kind of specify the Wi-Fi kick/users directory. So this should go ahead and resolve. So once you have this, then you've successfully kind of set up Apache with the necessary files, and you can see there's no error here at all. So this is the first step. The next step we need to do is to install what's called the viewer component. So if you notice, Wi-Fi had two components. We just copied the Wi-Fi kicks directory. So this is basically what will provide the Wi-Fi viewer component with the necessary information. So we can go ahead and ignore this. The next thing we need to do, going back to our server, is to go back to the root directory that we have our files, and then in the Wi-Fi hotcakes directory we need to copy the Wi-Fi directory, and this we need to copy not into the kick PHP installation this time around, but also in the root of the web server. So we just copy this, press enter. So once this is complete, we should be able to go into this, and you can see, okay, so you can see we need to also fix the ownership of the Wi-Fi directory. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and kind of just replace this with just Wi-Fi. Press enter. If everything is successful, you should see the login page like this. You can see it's successful, and you can log in with the root and the admin password. Right, so you can see that you successfully logged in, and this is the login page for Wi-Fi hotcakes. Right, so alright, so this is the first step. So once you have this, you're halfway there, you're halfway kind of done. So we need to go back and also set up the underlying files like the radio server and so on. So like I mentioned earlier, we need to go back into the root directory. Okay, so we need to ensure that we have the, so using the -qa command, we need to ensure that we have the RPM tools. So let's just use this. So we have the Red Hat build, we have the Red Hat RPM dev tools, and then we have the RPM devel. Right, so if you run the RPM build command, it should tell us that there's no spec file, okay, which is normal. So what you need to do is, I've already compiled this, so I'm not going to show you everything working, but I just want to kind of point you in the right direction when you're trying to compile or create the RPMs for your free radio server. So the first thing you need to do is you need to extract the files. So let me just put this, let me allow this to go through. Right, so once it has extracted all the files, you need to go into the free radio server directory, and in there you'll see there's a Red Hat subdirectory there. So one of the things you look at here is the free radios, or the free radios.spec file. So what we need to do basically is to run the rpm build -pa command. For some reason, okay, I need to spec. Right, so in this case we need to check that this folder exists. So if I do an ls in the root directory, you should see that the system has gone ahead and created the rpm build subdirectory. So initially it was not there, but now it is there. So what you need to do now, after trying to force the error, is to copy the freeradius.spec file. You need to copy it into the root rpm build directory, and there's a directory called specs. Right, so the next thing you need to do is to copy everything to the root rpm build sources directory, and once you've done that, you need to also copy the main freeradius source. In this case is the .tar.gz, so you need to copy it into the root rpm build sources directory. And the last thing you need to do is to edit the root rpm build specs and the freeradius spec file. One of the things you need to modify here is you can see the default freeradius package is looking for the .bz2 file. So because ours is gz, so we need to change that. You need to save the file and try and run the rpm build command. So but for you to successfully run the rpm build command, you need to also be in the rpm build specs directory, and there you can run the rpm build -ba. The -ba flag allows you to compile the freeradius and also keep the source file. So basically you can rebuild the source file once you have the dependencies installed. So you can see that it goes ahead and kind of extracts the files, and if there was a dependency problem, it will go ahead and kind of tell me that there's a problem. So like I said, I've already done this, so this is just to show you what to do. So I'm going to cancel this, and we can kind of continue, and you see what to install. So once you've actually successfully created the rpms, you can see that you have all the rpms like this. So you can go ahead and kind of use rpm to install all. So I'll use the -all. So this should go ahead and install the rpm packages. Okay, so one of the things you also notice is the freeradius MySQL file. This is required. The freeradius Perl file, this is also required so that you can actually run most of the files that ships with the rad db file, shipping with Wi-Fi hotcakes manager. Now for some reason I tried the default the freeradius that came with the default CentOS package, and for some reason it failed to load some of the Perl modules in the Wi-Fi hotkey manager. So that's why I'm opting that you actually kind of build the rpm yourself so that it compiles with your version of Perl. So having done that, let's kind of clear the screen and set it up. So the installation has actually created a file in the etc directory called raddb, right? So so you can see that the file called raddb has been created by the radius file server. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of move or rename the file to .original, or you can just call it anything you want. So what I want to do now is to copy, when you go to the Wi-Fi cakes installation in the setup directory, you notice we had radius. So in the radius you had raddb. So I'm just going to kind of copy it to the present location. So this was supposed to be copy, right? So we need to also extract that raddb.tar kind of .gz. all right, so now I can change directory into raddb. This is the one that came with the radius file, and you can see that the ownership is also messed up. So what you can do is you can also kind of change the ownership to radius d. This is the user that manages the radius d daemon, radius d. All right, so once you run that on the raddb directory, now you should fix the permissions. All right, so having done that, we need to also ensure some files are also set correctly. The first thing you need to check is the Sql.conf file. Basically, if you scroll down, you will notice the server, the connection to the database. So in an event you deviated from the basic installation by changing the password and the database name, then you need to also modify this file. The next thing you need to also do is to, by default, if you go into the dictionary file, for instance, you can see that the path to the free radius dictionary is off, because in CentOS it's actually located in the USR shared directory and then not local. So to fix this, we've